Why did you start working out?
Why did I start working out? Oh, the fitness journey started as a fatness journey. That's what I like to say. I think that my first addiction was sugar. So when I was a little kid, I definitely developed an eating disorder, probably attributed to anxiety, like being weird at school, not fitting in, having social anxiety, and I used to like save my bus fare so I could buy candy and soda, and then I would like sit in my room and draw comic books and kind of hide from the world and listen to music. So that kind of didn't work out for a while, and I was that was the beginning. Those unhealthy eating habits. Also, I grew up in a pretty financially challenged family, and McDonald's was stuff that we would eat, and pizza and stuff, and there was no like nutrition and health wasn't an important part, of life, and obesity ran in my family too. So I got pretty fat, and I got picked on, I got beat up a lot, I got jumped, I got teased, and around 16, I started going to the gym, and I had like a growth spurt, and I was in a band, and yeah, and then I started fighting the bullies back, and the girl started noticing, and I was like, all right, cool. And so it's been like, it's an up and down thing. Like now I'm like, I think when I was young, fitness was about looking a certain way, and as I've gotten older, it's about feeling a certain way, and it's like it's maintenance on a physical level, but I consider working out a moving meditation. And so there's a lot of times where, a lot of people, when things go wrong in life, or they're frustrated, they take it out on the weights, or they go for a run. And these are all really positive physical activities that kind of reset the chemical imbalances in our brain that stress can induce. So it's a huge part of my life. And at one point, at my lowest, I think I was about 320 pounds, and I wasn't working out, and I was obese, and I remember seeing like video footage of me playing a show, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, And then I went back to the gym, and I just kind of been doing that ever since. Well, I mean, I think those two are, I guess that's it. Those are interchangeable. Like, it obviously is a priority for me. If I can't work out, I can get depressed. Like if I can't physically move around, if I get injured, and I've had injuries on tour, and I've had to, I have like a reoccurring elbow tear that, sometimes it'll put me out. I've hurt my back on the road, and I've gotten the flu on the road, So whenever I have to take it easy for too long, and I can't do anything, I lose that outlet. And so I have to like find other things, whether it's reading or meditating or whatever, to replace the kind of the balance that physical exercise gives me. And it's also, it keeps you focused on things,
Getting out of bed in the morning.
My reason for getting out of bed every morning. I don't know. I think I want to make a difference. I'm somebody who, I've been through so much stuff in my life that, I want to walk with purpose. I want to live with purpose. And I think that the band is a great vehicle and a platform for me to express not only my experiences, but a message of hope and a message of depth and weight. A lot of our songs, like Sober, very openly talk about my struggles with drug and alcohol addiction, and now I'm 11 and a half years sober, and it's something that before the band took off, my job was to be a sober coach, which is basically a counselor, a live-in counselor for people who are dealing with their first 30 to 60 days of recovery, and I really liked watching people have the lights come back on, and watching the miracle happen, where people's families would reunite, and you know, it's something that when you work in that kind of field, you see people later on in life, and they barely resemble who they were when you met them, and that I want to translate through the music. You know, we have songs like "Remember When," which is a very personal song about my family and my twin brother who tried to murder me during a home invasion while he was on drugs in 2010. And I had gotten sober, and he kept going down the spiral, and it was a really hard thing for my family to go through, and we wound up. I wrote a song about it on the band's debut album, and then we made a music video that narrated it, and I think it was like ultimately a healing process for myself and my mother, and and a lot of people that I didn't realize who had family members who were that deep into their addiction and that had done, these kind of extreme violent things and all that insanity. So in a way, by putting that out there and having so many people respond, almost saying like, I went through that too, or I'm going through that too, it made me feel less terminally unique. And the situation now isn't, and I think that that's important. I think, going hand in hand with why fitness is important for our mental health, I think our communities are important for our mental health. And I think that, no matter how far down we go, when we overcome these things, we get stories, and then our experiences become the thing that benefit other people when we share them with them. And then that's kind of how we heal. That's how people work, I think.
Like figuring out where you stand.
I think the process of, I think processing trauma, what worked for me was service work. So I actually went through a suicidal depression after I had testified against my brother and he went to jail. And so I had been on autopilot for months, just trying to survive. And I stuffed down all my feelings. And so when it came back, when everything was over and I expected to like start my life, all my feelings hit me at once. And so all the feelings that I didn't deal with, I felt like I had no purpose, and I felt like, what's the use, and what have I done? Like, why am I like this? Why, all those questions, the involuntary sharing that the depressive side of our minds do to us, that questions that don't need to be really answered or asked at all. And I think that's something that in my work with veterans, they talk about coming home, from being deployed and then having a loss of sense of purpose and a loss of structure. It's something that I talk about with kids who deal with self-harm issues that have either come to my shows or messaged me, which is also part of my story. And that I think depression and suicidal ideation, it all centers in the same place of fear, and I call it terminal not enoughness. Like, we feel so insufficient, like on a spiritual level, we're spiritually bankrupt, and we feel so insufficient that it's like we can't find a reason. And so I got really good at finding a reason to get up every day and like getting on with it. But for me, my reason was you. Like, I started like volunteering. I started sponsoring people in recovery programs. I would feed the homeless. I would do any job that I could. Like, if somebody needed help, I'd be like, I'll just do it. There was a year in my life where part of my spiritual practice was every morning I would get on my knees and I would say, Dear God, I'll do anything. Wherever you need me to be, just help me recognize where I need to be and I'll show up. And that year of doing that, it changed my entire world. It changed my worldview. It changed the people who are around me. And it sent me on a different trajectory. And so for me, when I'm acting in altruism, and this is not, and this is not by some way of virtue, I am in fact a selfish addict person. So if I do something and it feels good, I want to keep doing it, And that's what I tell people, who kind of like, well, how can I help somebody else if I feel like I can't help myself? I'm like, it's the act of like helping someone who has less than you that makes you realize what you have something to give, and it changes the way that you think about yourself, and that changes the way you talk to yourself, because our thoughts really become things. You know, an idea, like a perfect example is we're in, this whole warehouse and gym and this whole company was an idea, right? That was worked into reality. And, that takes an immense amount of that's why I love Andy and the Frisella family so much, because they get an idea, they say yes, and then they do it. And then as a result, other people get inspired, and then, a team and a family grows up around you. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be like. That's what I'm about. So I think that, going from so low to wanting to be up here, and it's important to understand, like, I still have bad days. Like, everybody's going to have bad days. You just have to kind of accept that. And it's not that life gets easier the more that we learn how to live. It's that life still gets hard. We just get better at dealing with it. That's it. It's like playing a video game that you've never played before. The first time you suck, and if you spend 20 hours playing it, you're like, I beat the game. It's just in life, it takes like 30 or 40 years to beat the game.
Sometimes longer.
Yeah, sometimes longer.
What kind of a role has fitness played in your journey? What does fitness mean to you?
I think I think at this point it's just about keeping consistency. I think, to be like anyone who's seen us perform live knows that I'm like an incredibly physical performer. I'm running laps on stage, I'm jumping in the crowd, I'm jumping on stage, I jump off the drum riser. I'm doing things that guys half my age do, and I want to be doing that into my later years. That's what I love about artists like Ozzy Osbourne. I've seen Ozzy play, and Ozzy's in his 60s now. And he's sober, and he's doing his thing, and he's crushing it, and I think that's cool. The old the old idea of rock stars dying young, that's not original anymore. That's not an original story. It's a more original story, seeing people, make the change. And I've witnessed it. I've seen it. I've seen some of the biggest names in my industry. I've watched them at their lowest, and I've seen them experience miracles. And I think other people who are dealing with either addiction or alcoholism or depression, and they're fighting it by doing fitness and taking care of themselves, and it's one day at a time. They may look at other people who have stuff and think that they're okay, and they're not. It's just that when you're famous, a lot of, and then I live in LA, I'm from New York, but I live in LA, and you see the cover-ups. People are train wrecking, but the PR firms are working double time to try to stop anyone from knowing what's really going on, which is something I don't really buy. Like, I'm kind of just like, whatever's going on with me, it's out there. And I think being real is something that's a commodity now, because of that premise. Like, people need to understand that we're all people, and that doesn't matter what your job is. All work is honorable. That's something I was quoted in, and Kate actually had a mug made for me that says all work is honorable, and I was like, oh, like somebody knew about this. And it's like, whatever it is that you do, just get up every day and try to do it to the best of your ability. And sometimes just getting up and getting out of bed, if that's all you could do, fucking do that shit. Just do it, And then the next day, maybe doing that and something else, And eventually, if you keep adding, you start to get a pretty big life. And you don't have to take it all on at once. Everything happens today. What's the biggest struggle? I mean, it's a lot. I mean, processing trauma. You know, I think that there was a point where I started getting asked to speak publicly a lot, and it was around this. It was towards the tail end of the year where I was like, I'll do anything, and somebody was like, hey, will you speak at this thing? And that turned into another and another, and all of a sudden I was speaking like 3 times a week all over the place, and I was telling my story, and I was seeing people in the audience. They would cry or they would be inspired, and as I shared my pain, I divided it every time, and that's why it's important to like. That was a form of therapy. I also believe in going to a therapist. But when we share our pain, we cut it in half. And when we share our joy, it multiplies. And human beings are kind of like funny creatures like that, where, you know, we need each other. We act like we don't, and we pretend that we don't, or we're like all good in our little digital worlds, but it's unnatural for us. And we basically, our society is built on interdependence. We need each other. I don't know how good I'm doing because I'm always comparing myself to unattainable expectations, right? So I think I'm failing, but it's the people around me who are like, dude, remember last year you were at this place and now you're at this place. I'm like, oh yeah. And I have to be a sounding board for other people. You know, I have some friends who are like, oh, you know, I'm not, you know, this, that, the other. And I'm like, yeah, but you remember 2 years ago when it was like this and now you're here? You know, because we never, I think most driven people who are really driven to change and re-engineer their lives, they never feel satisfied, you know, and that's what, and we need other people to remind us that we're on the right path, you know. Being satisfied, I call it divine discontent. Right? Because there are times when I'm not happy with something, when it could be a song, and I'm like inside, I'm like, this is not good enough. And it's not because it's not good enough, it's that for it to exist, it's that I'm like, oh, I can do better. I've been in relationships where I'm like, I can do better than this. And I've been in bands where I'm like, I can do better than this. And so, you know, I have a propensity to grow fast. And that's okay, you know. That's what progressing means. You know, if we outgrow situations because our self-esteem grows, because our self-worth grows, because our responsibilities grow, because the demand on us grows, and it's in every part of our lives. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, a rock star or an athlete, or if you're you know, a police officer or a teacher, or you work at a hospital, or you're, you know, a mechanic, or whatever it is, whether you're an IT person, whether you're, you know, you're being creative, or whatever medium it is, whether it's painting or filming or recording, or, you know, there's an art to this, whether you're a journalist or, you know, whatever it is. And so, you know, yeah, I just feel like the principles are kind of universal.
Totally.
If that makes sense, I don't know.
Like there's a structure to thinking about something correctly. Once you kind of figure that out, you can like plug and play into anything really. Because growing is just, it's the same no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a saying. I'm like, if you don't want to grow, you gotta go. Because you know, it won't work. It won't work.
Really quick too, I'm gonna have you clap after that just as.
Okay. Okay.
All right, what does first form mean to you?
First form, what first form means to me is, it's kind of like how I talked about it. It's like, it's an idea, and that turned into like a family. And I think that from every intricate detail of how the company is, and the people who get hired here, and the people who work, to the handwritten letters that they send, you know, people here take time and put effort into every aspect of what they do, and that's rare. Especially you know, in a time where so many companies, the bigger they get, the less human they are, and this is kind of the opposite, you know. And so I think that for me personally, the products are stuff that I used for a long time, because a lot of the stuff it's clean. You know, when you just look at the products and you compare them to what's on the market, it's so much higher quality than what's out there. And then you're like, why is it like this? You know, when it could be cheaper to make it shittier. And that's kind of become like a problem in business in America, is like, oh, we'll just get it made in China and fucking, you know. And I think that, you know, from everything from the supplements to the protein to the merch, I think there's just a lot of intricate detail and integrity in it, and the mentality of the team and the people. There's so many inspiring people on this team, and I'm like, you know, I always say you got to get in where you fit in, and you got to go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And this is a place that celebrates champions, and it's like everyday people who are, you know, whether it's like, you know, people are engaging in the challenges or they're doing, you know, weight loss. Like, you don't have to be a professional athlete to be celebrated for achieving your goals. And then it's almost like together as a community, the First Phorm community, you know, everyone supports each other. And then if you get your goal, they're like, all right, now this one. And that's kind of like the same principle of what I talked about, how people need people. And what's happening here is it's, I don't know, it's almost like the company makes me feel like the Olympics of getting it done. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And that's kind of, you know, that's kind of what Andy embodies, you know, that's what he's about. And I love this, I love success stories, and I like, because I can relate to them. It becomes personal. You're like, oh, you see other people's personal journeys go from here to here, and when you're here and you don't have anybody to inspire you, it's hard to imagine actually attaining your goals and dreams. But when you have other people that are like, hey, I did it, and don't just see me as up here, know how I got to here, and know what it takes to get to here, and be free and share willingly the knowledge that you have, and then people flourish, you know? Did that answer the question?
Yeah. And you kind of answered the next one too, which is, you know, is there something that you love most about First Phorm that you could think of, like the top reason, if you could boil it down?
Oh, I think it's the people, you know? It's like, I think Andy and Sal and Emily, and there's so many people, you know, it's like from Kate going and making like care packages and like making things specific to me, to, you know, Jared. And I mean, it's just it's like everyone feels like home here. You know what I mean? Like, we just met and I'm like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, there's something going on here that I would like to, like, this is what I was thinking about this yesterday. If record labels operated the way First Phorm does, there'd be much better music in the world. And like, you can quote me on that. If record labels operated with the integrity that First Phorm does, the artists would create better music. That's what would happen.
I know what you mean by that. I actually, before I came here, I worked full-time doing video production for artists and touring and videos, doing live events mainly. And working directly with record labels was probably the worst experience of my entire life. Like, just talk about one area where they're just the worst kinds of people. Well,
it's very confused. Everybody's and the music industry is like an endangered species almost, because of downloading and streaming really killed record sales. So what happens is you have a bunch of people who are afraid to lose their job trying to make, and it's like, it's not any one record label per se. It's just, this is the culture of the entertainment industry, and then everyone's always trying to get things for free. It's like standard business to kind of financially defraud the artists, whether it's the musicians or the videographers, or everyone's trying to get everything for as cheap or as free as possible. And I get that, that's what managers do, but we're in a new era, and I think that the tech companies learned that the people who work for them are more productive when they're happy. And that's kind of reverberated. And you can see that kind of progressive mentality in this office setting, because people are happy, and that's why things are going well. And I think Andy should be teaching CEOs of record labels how to run their labels better, because because it really is. It's just, that's how it is. And so yeah, you can quote me on it. That's that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get fired for this. I just say anything that is the truth, and then people are like, you can't say that. And I'm like, I just did. It's just it's just the truth. Hopefully somebody, like maybe somebody at Sony will be like, maybe I need to rethink this, whatever. But yeah.
What type of impact has First Phorm had on your life?
A lot. So, I use so much. I think that the master brain is so I partied, okay? So it's been a long time, but I forget things. I forget my wallet, my car keys. And I started taking master brain for cognitive function, and my productivity level and my multitasking is incredible, and my memory is better. That's one thing. Obviously, I use their protein. Their pre-workout is amazing. I take Microfactor. I'm somebody who, I can't have the big pill box with all the vitamins. I'm a dude. And I'm on the run. So if I just grab that box and I just take the bags, I take it on tour. I'm like, all right, cool. I can't mess this up. Here's the bag. Here's everything I need in it. I eat it, and then I go. And then I'm healthier. So it's had a massive physical impact, and then on an emotional level, I made friends, and I like to be around people that I look up to. You can't get to the major leagues by playing with chumps, and so I just have this habit of wanting to surround myself with people of excellence, and so. This is a good place to do that, you know what I mean?
Do you have a favorite memory or moment from a First Phorm event, Summer Smash, Athlete Weekend?
I haven't gone to Summer Smash, or I haven't, because I'm kind of new. I'm new I came in this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I came in this year. I think this week, me and Andy have been talking forever, and we're in a group text, and we never met in person, and I'm like, listen to his podcast, and I'm part of the team, and it was just great. I just walked in, and he was like, yo, I was like, it was like meeting an older brother kind of person, for the first time, but you're like, I already know you, bro, and yeah. I think that's probably just coming here and taking it in and understanding it. This is it has a lot of impact on me, because I'm a small business owner, and it raises the bar for how I want to run my own small business. Because if I want my business to be a big business, I have to do what what it takes to make it that. Stay close and be patient. Because I've known what I am from a very young age. I started singing at 14, and people were like, how did you choose music? I'm like, it chooses you. I'm that kind of a person. And I had ups and downs in my careers, and I obviously struggle with drugs and alcohol, and I've had record deals on and off since I was like 19 or 20 years old, since I was a kid, because I started at 14. And so every time it's like, this is gonna be it, and like my dreams are coming true, and then the reality sets in, and it's like, no, this sucks. And you got to keep going through the levels of the video game till you get to the top. And even at the top, you're like, this is not enough, you know, because of the satisfaction. Then it's not there. So then you have to figure out, what can you do with the position that you're in? How can you do what is right? And then that feels good for a while. And then you got to do something else. And so you just, you know, it's a constant build. So I think being patient and staying close to your dreams is the only way, you know. I could have saved myself a lot of pain if I learned to let go of expectations younger, because expectations are literally resentments under construction. You know, it should be like this, or it's going to be like this. It's like, everything is going to be exactly the way that it is at the time that it's going to be. And when that time happens, it's going to be the now. So worrying about tomorrow is kind of futile, you know, and worrying about the past, it already happened, you know. It's also like, I like this guy Eckhart Tolle. A lot of people read his books, but he talks about, he's like, you can enter the present and be happy at any point in time. So many people, they believe and follow the pursuit of happiness. And that's great. But we don't teach people to have happiness in the pursuit. I like the chase, you know? The kill is great too, but I like the chase, you know? It's like, you see, you know, cheetahs like to run, or they wouldn't do it, you know? And so I think that it's an invaluable lesson to remind people that you don't have to wait until you're at the destination to enjoy the process. And sometimes it's hard. Like, it's like I know some fighters, and they're like, when they get hit, they like it, because it's like, oh, I'm alive. Like, this is happening, you know? And so sometimes life just kicks our asses, and you're like, all right. It's about how much you can, like, get hit and keep going.
Pertains to fitness?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the goals move, right? So first I just didn't want to be fat. Then I wanted to be big. Then I was like, how do I become lean? And I have to work harder. I don't have a naturally athletic body. Like, I'm grateful for the body that I have, and I work with what I have. And it was a long process to, like, be able to accept myself, you know, because everyone that I think for men, we don't really talk about this that much. There's a lot of guys who are really, like, lean and small and ripped, and if they photograph well, but secretly they wish they were big. And then there are guys who are big who wish we were ripped, because we're like, oh, you know, I'm big, but I'm stocky or whatever. And so, and I know that women go through this too, but men don't talk about how, like, this stuff, like body dysmorphia, and, you know, and I think that, you know, we do the work. It basically puts all that to bed, and it's like, you're not here to compare yourself to somebody else. You can only compare yourself to who you were yesterday, and that's how champions are made. And it's like, whatever it is that you're a champion of, it might be your own personal goals, it might be of the Olympics, or it might be of whatever. But as long as you're looking at it from that perspective, and you do the work every day, you don't have to compare yourself to others. You compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And if today you're better than you were yesterday, tomorrow you just do the same thing you did, and just keep going. Perseverance. I think people who persevere, I used to be inspired, I used to be motivated by trauma and negative stuff, and that's okay. Like, that fuel will burn you to a certain place. But once you get there, you're like, okay, I need to be inspired on a higher level. And so other people's stories of perseverance, or, you know, taking it to the next step of your development. Because a lot of times getting where you want to be is like, you're like, okay, well, now what? What's the next thing? So now I'm kind of in a place where I'm taking notes from people who made it happen, got to exactly what they want, and now they're doing even more stuff, you know? So yeah, people, the answer is people inspire me. And honestly, it sounds morbid, but like the people who are actually most inspiring to me are people who are dying. And in my line of work, I get contacted by a lot of fans, and people have cancer, or they're diagnosed with some terminal illness, and I've gone to the hospital to visit several fans, and it's like, to me, I don't even feel worthy of being a person that they want to meet, because they're at such an important place in their lives where they're transitioning to the next phase. But everyone always has a pretty good attitude. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm being shitty. Like, today I'm being shitty, or I'm being a diva, or like, you know, I'm in my shit. And, you know, this kid's got brain cancer and he just wants to meet me, you know? You know, it's like, or there's, you know, I'll have meet and greets, and there's like a little girl who's 4 years old and her dad died, and like they used to sing our song together, and this actually happened. I brought this in Pittsburgh like last year, and the mom brought the daughter, and they did the meet and greet, and she was like, I want to sing. Like, I was like, oh, you do? Okay. Did you practice? She's like, yes. And I was like, all right. I'm like, do you want to rehearse? She's like, no. I was like, okay. So we gave them backstage passes, and I was like, all right, you know. And yeah, and she killed it. And like, that's, having moments like that is like so wild to me. Like, who am I that I get to have those experiences? It's wild, you know? So it's like, it's people who are going through real stuff. It's not necessarily only when they've already overcome it. It's like, I see people in their journey, and I'm like, yeah, like, because I was there. You know, I was dead. I actually was dead. I had to be revived. You know, so I had a near-death experience. So like, that stuff is like, I think morbidity is like very close to me, because I like had a unique experience. So yeah, that stuff inspires me. I don't think life has a meaning. Life is I think there's like, the nature of life is, it's like, I don't know if we can understand it. It's as complicated as the way that nature interacts with us and we interact with nature. And there's so many, there's like, if you look out the window, there's just billions of things going on. There's organisms, and there's oxygen molecules and atoms and everything. And like, you know, I can't really compress or quantify the reality that we're animals on a spinning rock in the middle of nothingness with a giant fireball that keeps us alive. Like, I can't even, but I know that people are like, what's the meaning of life? There is no meaning, because it's like, meaning is ascribed. Like, we could just decide that that plant is a tool shed, and if everyone decides that, that's what its name is. So you can't really know what the meaning of life is, because every single person will have a different perspective on what that meaning is to them. But the nature of things is irrefutable. It's like, science is science. You know what I mean? It's mathematical. There's geometrical laws to our reality. And that's whatever is in charge of what created all this. Sick. Like, you know, so whatever did all this and put us here, like, I'm very grateful for. And I don't know, and like, that's what life is. It's like, we live in a weird delusion where we're all separate from each other. And people are like, oh, they self-identify with different things, like, oh, I'm black, or I'm white, or I'm a man, or I'm a woman, or I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm gay, or I'm straight. We're all different. Like, we're all interpretations of the same point of consciousness. And I believe that when we die, we go back to God, and like, that's the thing. And I think I like religions, and I think all of them are talking about the same thing, kind of, and that people kind of screwed it up. They kind of took what was seen and understood and written down, and they kind of like all ran with it, and somehow politicized religion to a degree, And so I don't know. I think there's been like a lot of great spiritual teachers throughout the course of humanity, and like when we get close to the teachings, we tap into something. Because how did they know so far long ago what was so inherently true today? And little kids know about this, and animals know about this.